I met a gypsy.
Has there ever been a moment in downhill where you get a guy come into the class, maybe it's from juniors, that elevates the level, almost catches everyone off guard, and then year two, when you think it's going to be just over, like your buddy was saying, where it's like, oh, it's done now, you know, but then everyone sees the level, has time in the off season to adapt, raises to the level, and you get those super competitive years?
Absolutely. I think it's crazy now. Certainly with our sport, you're getting kind of 16, 17, 18-year-old kids are racing in junior. And Jordan Williams, for example, in, what was this, 2020, don't quote me on the year, somewhere between 21 and 23, he came from, and he was obviously racing Jackson Goldstone. They had one of the most ridiculous junior seasons, just 1 and 2 all year long. It was absolute madness, and their times, I think, were in the top 5 at some races for the elite male. A little bit uncomparable because they would race like 3 or 4 hours earlier than us.
A bit earlier.
The track would get a fair bit more. Like, it was hard to say, but regardless, you can tell they were going to come into elite and be qualifying guys and fighting for top 10s instantly. And Jordan Williams came to round 1 as a first ever elite race and smoked us all, you know. Stood on the podium, number
That's
1.
right.
And everybody went, oh my days, this is it. Jackson and Jordan are just going to walk away with this. And then Jordan ended up dabbing a foot that season, kind of that high. It's the same, I guess, it happens in all sports. You win a championship or something, it's like that motivation kind of drops off because you've just achieved your goal. So if you don't reset a goal like instantly, you can spend a bit of time in just no man's land where you're kind of trying to enjoy the success you've just had, but also trying to refocus to do it again. It can be a challenge. And you could tell with Jordan, he was stunned. You know, life stunned him. He was stood there going, how's this happened? And it took him months really to get back to the pace that he should have been. And then unfortunately he dabbed his knee, same as Jackson, didn't even crash, same as Jet, didn't even crash, just dabbed the knee and done an ACL, and that was him out for the year. So to go from that to that again, and now this season he's going to be coming in trying to build from the bottom again. And Jackson was the same. He went on to dominate, almost like had a pretty insane season with some amazing race wins, and then went to Madeira at the start of last year and done an ACL. So that fundamentally is what slows these kids down. Like you have an age, we all know this, where you're made of rubber, and it gets to, let's say, 20 to 25, depending on your genetics, where that stops happening, and when you hit the ground, things start breaking, and it's unavoidable. And those are the fundamental things in sport that slow you down. That's the thing that starts to play with your head. You're trying to come back and race, but it's my first race back, I'll go easy. You know, you're trying not to get injured. Kind of like what I said before, you start thinking, and once you start thinking, it's the flow's gone and it's kind of over. So you don't truly know how a junior athlete's going to fully develop through their career, I don't think, until they've done 2 or 3 seasons in an elite and fundamentally went through a big injury, like something really major that takes them out for longer than 3 or 4 months, because the fear of the crash is one thing, the fear of the recovery and happening again, home pressures, team pressures. Mate, there's so much, you know yourself, there's so much mentally that goes into sport. It's the stuff we see on the TV is like the tiniest percentage of what's actually going on in an athlete's life, and why their performance is what it is on a particular weekend. You know, it's a mystical thing.
No, it's so true. And do you think that there's something about when competitors see that level get raised? Like, what is it where I've spoke about this recently, like Billy McKenzie, 2010 or whatever it was, in Australia, comes over, completely smokes everyone, and then 2 rounds later, the guys are there. And it's almost like they just saw a new level, saw what was like their baseline of reality just got kind of like, just shifted up a little bit. And is that a real thing that happens? Like you see a Jackson Goldstone and you're like, all right, that was a 5-minute 15. Like, okay, that's what's on the table. Like, that's what I can extract from this track. And then you can just do it. Is that what makes you guys so elite, do you think?
I think it's different in downhill. Motocross for me was always the easiest sport when it, like, let's be honest, that second place, you've got enough pace, but number one's right in front of you. It's as simple as brake half a meter later. Like, you can physically see where the guy's braking, so you just need to brake a little bit easier. You can see where he's letting off the throttle a little bit more, and you can inch in so easy on a motocross bike. On a downhill bike, you don't have anything. You've got your own perception of how fast you're going, and that's it. We can't race other people down the hill with us. So there's runs in my life where I've been approaching the finish going, oh my God, I've smashed this, and you're nowhere. Like, you're not even in the top 20. So you're like, well, what happened there? You know, you're back to the drawing board again. There's no real answers. And when you try and watch the race back, 90% of the time we're all in the same line. Nobody's got a crazy line on the track. It's not a motocross track where it's 20 or 30 feet wide. We're racing normally on a track that come race day is 6 inches wide for 4 minutes. You know, and you have to be on that line. And if you're off that line, you're just hemorrhaging time. So it's not as simple in downhill at all as just watching a race back and going, oh well, he just done that, so I'll just do that. It's like all the gains and advantages are so minute in downhill that the naked eye can't actually see them. And I do believe in downhill, it's what's between the ears. It's where you are mentally. And if you're super happy with your team, your body's good, your home life's good, everything with a girlfriend's good, like all of these things is fundamentally what leads to a guy's energy and confidence and ego just being at a perfect size where he doesn't overdo it, but he's confident enough to send it a little bit, you know, just be overly confident with himself. And those are normally, in my experience, those have been the weekends for me that it's just been, I've been so confident after track walk. I'm like, yeah, I'm winning this thing. I've not changed my bike. I don't know what anybody else is doing. It just goes right, you know, something just works for you. So downhill has not been dominated since 2012. Aaron Gwent was probably the only guy to do it. Yeah, he had some race seasons where it was or some races where it was beating guys by like 6 seconds, which at the time was, we might never see that again in our sport. So, yeah, the juniors, I think the juniors are for sure getting faster earlier, but the top level guys are just the top level guys. You know, the junior guys can get to that level, but it's in downhill, there's not this massive quantum leap that somebody can just do one weekend and then not have the next. From history, maybe it'll change. I'd love to try myself, you know, with bikes and tech and everything like that. I think there are massive advantages to be made, and we're going to try our best. But can somebody win by 6 seconds again? It seems hard to believe sitting here right now. So time will tell.
No, dude. Yeah. I mean, this sport, like we were talking, it's funny, Kenny was on the pod the other day, and he said that after racing, he is going to try downhill maybe. And then I was like, do you really think you could qualify for a World Cup? And he's like, yeah, I think so. And it's like, it just made me think like, and you hear, you know, well, there's been people that are like, Jet might just get sick of motocross and go do MotoGP. And I'm just like, have you been to a MotoGP race, brother? Like, these guys are fucking aliens that are not from this planet. And then amongst those aliens, there's other aliens. I was like, it ain't going to go like that. And I feel like sport across the board. I mean, watching gymnastics at the Olympics, it's just like the level that these humans are on is absolutely insane. And it's like, you just wonder what, I mean, obviously sport always progresses, right? But it's just like, it feels like right now, if you're at the top of a sport, 2025, you're basically you've evolved into something more than a human. That's a
hell of a compliment to those people. But I've been saying this for a really long time. You know, I think freestyle motocross is one of the best examples now of, okay, what is next for the human being when it comes to tricks on a motocross bike, like a triple backflip. And then you think, well, what's next? The quadruple backflip. You know, there's surely no way. You know, we're starting to drop from like 10, 15, 20-story buildings just on a rev limit or on a 450. Like you say, that's an alien level activity. It's already getting ridiculous. And I think the same thing. I have times and places on a bike where I go, I'll never do that fast again, ever again. Like, that was just almost pure luck, but then I had the skill to hold on to it, sort of thing. But yeah, you are absolutely right. Sport all across the world right now is like, how can we possibly get better as human beings? And then you see some 15-year-old kid, you know, on a motocross bike just hannying, you know, opposite ways, and you're just, right, okay, well, I guess we can get better. You know, I guess we're going to find out where the limit is.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.